Today, we're diving into something that might just completely change how you see the world around you. It's a discovery that suggests nature has a secret language, an ancient conversation that's been happening right under our noses, and we're only just now starting to listen in.
I mean, really think about that for a second. What if every forest, every field, every single ecosystem is basically a massive communication network? One that's buzzing with signals we've never even known were there. We're not just talking about sights and sounds, but a hidden language of chemicals, of vibrations, of electricity. You know, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but it might just be science fact.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into the core idea of the secret natural language. Then, we're going to look at the one incredible clue that basically unlocked this whole mystery, a plant that learned to speak ant. Seriously. From there, we'll zoom out and see the bigger picture, this whole ecosystem signal web. After that, we'll explore the wild idea of engineering these signals ourselves. And finally, we'll ask the big one. Are we on the verge of finding a universal language for all of life? Okay, so let's start with the foundational concept here. And just to be clear, we're not talking about birds chirping or wolves howling. This goes way, way deeper.
I want you to imagine, for a moment, an internet. But instead of fiber optics, it's made of sense, vibrations, and electrical pulses. That's the world we're stepping into today. A world where plants, insects, fungi, even the soil itself are constantly sharing information in this incredibly complex, multi-channel conversation.
You know how in every great detective story there's that one breakthrough moment, that single clue that just cracks the case wide open? Well, for the secret language of nature, that clue came from a very, very clever plant and its bizarre relationship with ants. No, you heard that right. Scientists found a plant that learned to speak ant. Not just, react to them or live alongside them. We're talking about a plant that actively taps into their communication channels to manipulate other creatures. This is the discovery that the entire theory really hangs on.
And look, this isn't just some wild idea. It's backed by research. A paper published in 2025 confirmed it, and the University of Tokyo literally called it the first ever documented case. This is the smoking gun. This is the proof that plants can intentionally hijack animal communication.
So how in the world does it actually do it? Well, the scientific term for it is olfactory mimicry. But you can basically think of the plant as a master impersonator. It releases this very specific chemical perfume that perfectly copies the smell of another creature, all to trick a third one into doing exactly what the plant wants.
The details here are just fascinating. The plant is called Vincetoxicum nakayanum, and it doesn't just mimic any old ant smell. Oh no, it mimics the very specific alarm pheromone of an injured ant. This scent is like a dinner bell for these little flies called kleptoparasites who are looking for an easy meal. But instead of finding food, they get tricked into pollinating the plant. This shows it's not some random fluke. It's a targeted, incredibly sophisticated strategy. Now that discovery is amazing all on its own. But the real mind blower is what it implies. This one plant probably isn't some weird anomaly. It's more like a single blinking light on a vast interconnected global network. It's a clue that shows us just how deep this rabbit hole really goes. And scientists have even given this massive network a name, AMPA-S+FNW. I know, it sounds a little complicated, but just think of it as the operating system for the entire ecosystem, a signal web that crosses kingdoms, connecting everything from the smallest microbe in the soil all the way up to the air itself. So let's just quickly break down that crazy acronym. It stands for ant, microbiome, pollen, air, and soil, plus fungi and worms. And this just perfectly illustrates the sheer scale of who's in on this conversation. It's not just plants and animals, it's the entire living and even non-living matrix of an environment. It's everything. And the language they're speaking isn't just one thing. It's multimodal. You've got chemical signals, like those pheromones we just talked about. There are acoustic signals, like the ultrasonic chirps that we now know stressed-out plants can emit. There are electrical signals passing through the soil, particulate signals like pollen floating on the wind, and even optical signals. It is a full-spectrum conversation happening all around us, all the time. So if nature really does have a language, well, the next obvious question is, can we learn to speak it? And this is where the research goes from just observing to actually applying this knowledge with some absolutely incredible possibilities.
Can we start sending our own messages into this network? Can we use this language to help us solve some of our biggest problems, like food security or environmental health? The researchers behind this think the answer is a resounding yes.
And we're not just talking about vague ideas here. The research actually outlines tangible engineering prototypes. Imagine using synthetic ant-mimic lures to guide pollinators exactly where we need them for our crops, or creating something called worm vent tiles that use earthworms to naturally create humid microclimates for plants. We could even deploy tiny bioreactors along ant trails to deliver helpful microbes. We're talking about designing with nature's own communication system. It's amazing. So why does this matter so much? Well, the potential benefits are just staggering. One example worked out in the research suggests that for farming, the return on investment for using these kinds of techniques could be as high as 20 times the initial cost. That is a massive incentive for us to learn this new language. Oh, and by the way, you saw that term PMMB in the last slide. It just stands for Pollen Microbiome Microbioreactors. The core idea is actually genius in its simplicity. You use empty, hollowed-out pollen shells as microscopic delivery trucks to carry beneficial microbes or other useful stuff exactly where you need it to go. Okay, now this is all incredibly exciting, but it's really crucial that we separate what we know for sure from what is still a compelling theory. I mean, that's what good science is all about, right? Being clear about what's proven and what's still a hypothesis. So here's a quick look at where the science stands. The plants mimicking ant smells, that's established. Fact. Plants making ultrasonic sounds when they're stressed, also established. But the idea that insects can hear and respond to those sounds, that's still emerging. And the even wilder idea that plants might mimic ant sounds, that's a hypothesis for now. The grand idea of a unified signal field with its own grammar, well, that's the big theoretical framework this research is trying to build. And that brings us to the biggest idea of all, the unified signal field. This is the ultimate theory. It proposes that all these different signals, the chemical, the acoustic, the electrical, they aren't separate conversations. Nope, they are all just different parts, the nouns, the verbs, the adjectives of a single, interconnected, universal language of nature. And this is where it gets truly mind-bending. The theory suggests this language might have a fractal grammar. What that means is the same basic communication patterns and rules could repeat at every single level, from the way tiny microbes talk to each other in the soil, all the way up to how an entire forest ecosystem responds to something like a fire. Which leaves us with this final, really profound question. By finding this one strange clue, the plant that speaks ant, have we stumbled upon a Rosetta Stone for nature itself? Are we standing on the threshold of not just observing life anymore, but of finally understanding its conversation?